The shot that broke 1,700 years. For 1,700 years, the galaxy had known something it once believed impossible: peace. Not perfect peace. Friction always existed between species, but a peace held together by the Treaty of Solathar, signed in blood and hope after the last great galactic war nearly extinguished 3 civilizations. The treaty became the longest period of stability the stars had ever witnessed. Generations were born, lived, and died without knowing the taste of interstellar war. That made what happened next all the more horrifying. The Grand Hall of the Solathar Prime Council was built to inspire awe. Its towering columns of black stone reflected the light of the red dwarf star outside. Banners representing every member species hung from the domed ceiling. Symbols of unity, sacrifice, compromise. But today, the hall vibrated with unease. Armed guards lined the walls. Ministers whispered anxiously behind holographic displays. Nothing about the gathering felt like the meetings meant to preserve peace. At the center stood General Cassandra Reese, humanity's representative. Her uniform was immaculate, dark navy with gold trim, medals glittering faintly under the hall's amber light. She was a diplomat, but she was also a soldier, one whose name commanded respect across hundreds of worlds. Calm, sharp-eyed, and unshakable, she had brokered more treaties, solved more conflicts, and prevented more wars than most diplomats could imagine. But today, she faced something no negotiation skill could fix: a king who wanted war. Galactic King Varric IX, robed in royal obsidian and wearing a jagged metallic crown, paced before the council table. His once celebrated charisma had evolved into something darker. Paranoia has sharpened into conviction. He believed humanity was rising too quickly, developing faster-than-light network capabilities the Empire didn't possess, building fleets in shadows he couldn't penetrate, advancing in ways he could not predict. To the king, humanity was no longer an ally. It was a threat. General Reese, the king boomed, "These attacks on our border colonies, your colonies, prove humanity is preparing for a unilateral expansion." Reese didn't flinch. "Your Majesty, as I've said, and as the evidence shows, these attacks were not carried out by any official human military. They were staged." She raised her hand, and a hologram appeared. Grainy footage of alien warships with mismatched insignias firing upon border stations. Those ships are modified replicas, obsolete models from the Garn Uprising. Someone wants to fracture the treaty. A ripple of concern passed through the council. The king remained unmoved. Fabrications. Lies. Humanity always hides its intentions behind diplomacy. Reese took a slow breath. She knew his pride was volatile, but truth mattered. "Your Majesty, with all due respect, your distrust is based not on facts, but on fear." The hall fell silent. The king turned sharply. "Fear? You accuse me of fear? You fear losing power," Reese said calmly. "You fear the galaxy evolving beyond your control. But your paranoia threatens the treaty more than any enemy does." A murmur swept through the council like a shockwave. No one challenged the king like this. Varric's eyes narrowed, glowing faintly with the bioluminescence unique to his species. His hand drifted to the ceremonial energy pistol at his waist. "Choose your next words carefully, human." Reese didn't move. "If you want the truth, your refusal to accept evidence is destroying the alliance your ancestors bled to build." That was the breaking point. In a single, furious motion, the king drew the pistol. Enough! The weapon crackled with deadly light. Council guards reached for their weapons, but froze. The king's authority outranked every protocol. A few ministers rose from their seats in alarm. Others gasped, and some simply watched with horrified fascination. Reese stood perfectly still. "I am a representative of peace," she said quietly. "If you kill me, you kill the treaty." "Good," the king whispered and pulled the trigger. The energy bolt hit Reese square in the chest. Light burst across her uniform, her body arching with the impact. She staggered, breath catching, legs buckling beneath her. The hall erupted into shouts. "Your Majesty, stop! This is madness!" Guards, intervene. How could he? Reese collapsed to her knees. The king watched her with cold satisfaction. Let humanity see the cost of defiance. She looked up at him one last time, pain flickering in her eyes. Pain not for herself, but for the peace she had dedicated her life to preserving. Humanity, she whispered, voice trembling, will remember. She fell to the ground, unmoving. Sensors recorded everything. Every camera, every diplomatic uplink, every official channel. Moments later, her death broadcast traveled across the galaxy, reaching human space faster than any messenger could fly. The peace treaty of Solathar was officially broken. The Galactic King stood over her body, realizing too late the magnitude of his act. His court froze in stunned silence. Some stared at him in disbelief. Others recoiled, as if witnessing the beginning of a nightmare. One counselor whispered the words no one dared say aloud. He has doomed us all. And far across the galaxy, when Earth received the transmission of Reese execution, the Terran command nexus went dark. Not with confusion, not with fear, but with activation. Humanity's silence was not hesitation. It was preparation. And the galaxy would soon learn what it meant to break a 1,700-year peace by killing a human general. The shot that broke the stars. The hall fell into a silence so absolute it seemed to smother sound itself. One heartbeat. 2. 3. Then the Galactic King pulled the trigger. A sharp, electric crack tore through the throne chamber, bright enough that several gathered diplomats flinched and shielded their eyes. A lance of violet energy crossed the space between monarch and soldier in a blink, striking General Aria Sol squarely in the chest. Her body jerked once, violently, as the impact cratered her armor and seared a glowing hole through its plating. The force sent her staggering backward. For a fraction of a second, her boots scraped against the polished obsidian floor in a hopeless attempt to stay upright. Then gravity won. Aria crashed to the ground in a heavy, echoing thud. The smell of ionized air mingled with burning fabric. For an instant, the universe held its breath. Then everything erupted. Your Majesty, a Valtari senator shrieked, rising from his seat in horror. You've doomed us, another roared. Several alien dignitaries bolted upright, their feathers puffed or their frills flaring in shock, some scrambling toward the exits, others frozen in disbelief. But King Vorkal didn't move. His hand remained extended, blaster still pointed at the smoking body of the fallen human general. His 6 crimson eyes were wide, whether with triumph or sudden realization, no one could tell. His other hand shook, ever so slightly, as if the weight of what he'd done had only now landed upon him. Aria Rourke, he whispered, almost too quietly to be heard. The Iron Witch of Earth. The human they said would never break. Look at her now. He didn't finish, because Aria wasn't dead. A low, ragged breath escaped her. Then another. Her fingers twitched, scraping weakly against the floor. Her throat made a strange sound as she forced air back into lungs that had no business still functioning. A faint blue shimmer pulsed around her wound, the emergency nanite mesh embedded beneath her skin. The aliens who witnessed it recoiled. She lives? A Takara diplomat gasped, mandibles clicking in disbelief. After a direct royal-class discharge, whispered another. Humans, what are they? Every alien present had heard the rumors. Every one of them knew humans were famed for their stubborn refusal to die, their ability to endure, to regenerate, to rise when others stayed down. But to see it, here, after such a lethal strike, was something else entirely. Aria rolled on her side, coughing, blood staining her lips. Her eyes opened, cold, furious, alive. King Vorkal stumbled back a step. Impossible, he hissed, voice trembling. That should have killed you. Aria spat blood onto the pristine floor and glared up at him. It almost did, she rasped. But almost has never been enough to save an empire from human retaliation. Across the hall, a group of alien envoys tried desperately to calm one another, whispering frantic calculations about how fast Earth could respond, how many fleets they might deploy, how long the Dominion could survive if the Terrans declared war. One number kept reappearing. Minutes. Not hours. The Valtari senator reactivated his comm line. "I must contact the council," he muttered, voice trembling. "This treaty held for 17 centuries. If she dies, nothing will stop them." But Arisia wasn't listening to them. Her gaze was locked on King Vorkal. "You think shooting me ends this?" she said, struggling to push herself upright. Her arm shook violently under her weight. The nanites were working, but not fast enough. Pain radiated through her chest with every breath. Vorkal leveled his weapon at her again. "Stay down. The next shot will finish the job." Arisia smiled, a slow, terrifying smile that didn't belong to someone dying. "Then shoot." The king hesitated, because it suddenly dawned on him that he wasn't looking at a defeated prisoner. He was facing a soldier who wanted him to try again. A soldier with the kind of resolve that had made humans feared across 3 galaxies. He lowered his weapon just a fraction, enough for Arisia to speak again. "You just fired the first shot of a war your ancestors had the wisdom to avoid for 1,700 years. She coughed again, wiping blood from her mouth. "Earth won't negotiate. Earth won't forgive. And Earth never, ever forgets." The room felt colder. An advisor rushed to the king's side. "Your Majesty, we must leave now." "Her forces will." He never finished the sentence, because the chamber lights flickered once, twice, then cut out entirely, leaving the room in darkness. A low hum vibrated through the walls. Every alien recognized the sound instantly. A Terran quantum lock beacon, an unauthorized teleportation signal, a human strike team. Panic rose in the hall like a tidal wave. King Vorkal looked around wildly. "What is that? What are they doing?" Arisia's voice cut through the darkness, cold and utterly calm. "They're coming." Before anyone could react, the emergency lights flickered on, blood red and pulsing. Arisia was no longer on the floor. She was standing, armored, weapon in hand, and she looked directly at the king. "You started this," she said. "But humans finish wars." And with that, the galaxy's longest peace shattered like fragile crystal. The general who would not die. The medbay lighting pulsed in soft, rhythmic waves, an artificial sunrise meant to soothe wounded soldiers. It failed entirely on General Aria Sol. She opened her eyes to the sterile white ceiling and the faint hum of life support machinery. Pain braided itself through every nerve, sharp and burning. Yet it was that pain that reminded her of a single truth. She was alive. Her first breath was ragged. Her second was full of fury. A cluster of medical staff jolted when she shifted. "General, don't move," one of them stammered. "Your injuries." "Status." Aria interrupted, voice hoarse but steady. "Earth." "The treaty." "The Dominion's response." The doctor swallowed. "The Dominion issued a statement declaring your execution lawful under defensive authority. They are mobilizing 14 fleets toward Sol." "Earth." Earth responded by activating the war protocol. The words hit harder than any plasma blast. War protocol. The contingency plan older than most nations, buried in old databases, revived only in whispered drills. Meaning, total war. Aria closed her eyes. A flash of memory seared bright. The king's weapon rising, the false smile, the sensation of plasma tearing through her chest. She was meant to be a sacrifice, a warning, a spectacle. She clenched her jaw. "How long have I been out?" 42 hours. 42 hours in which the galaxy had already begun to bleed. She pushed herself up on shaking arms. The machines whined in protest. The attending medic rushed toward her. "General, you can't. I don't have time to heal." Aria growled. "They shot me publicly. They expect the corpse to stay down. I plan to disappoint them." The medic hesitated, as if deciding whether to physically restrain her, but stepped back. "At least take the stabilizer injection." Aria relented. A hiss of cold bio-gel slid into her veins, dulling the worst edges of pain. It wasn't much, but it was enough. She swung her legs off the bed and stood on trembling knees. A mirror across the room caught her reflection. Deathly pale skin, dried blood along her collar. the faint glow of the regenerative mesh over her wound. A body that looked like it should be lying still, but eyes burning with a purpose that refused oblivion. Survival was no accident. It was intention. Earth Command War Room. The transition from medbay to the Command War Room was like stepping from a whisper into a storm. Screens flickered with fleet locations, Dominion movements, intercepted transmissions. Officers shouted over one another, juggling a crisis none had believed would ever arrive. When Aria stepped through the doorway, silence slammed into the room like a shockwave. Every head swiveled. Every jaw dropped. Someone whispered, "She's alive." Admiral Kale, towering and stone-faced, moved toward her. "General, we believed." "You believed wrong," Aria said calmly. "Now brief me." Kale regained his composure, gesturing to the central holodisplay. "The Dominion is assembling near the Orion Gate. Their king claimed you attempted an attack on him. They're painting your execution as a defensive action." "That lie won't hold long," Aria said. "Earth saw the footage." "That's why Earth is unified," Kale replied. 17 nations reactivated their fleets. The colonial spheres have pledged support. Even the Titan enclaves opened their vaults. A spark of pride flickered through her. Humanity rarely agreed on anything. But when threatened, humanity closed ranks. Still, she knew unity wasn't victory, not against a civilization spanning hundreds of star systems. "What's the Dominion's first move?" she asked. Kale zoomed the hologram. "A full incursion. They intend to seize the Sol system before Earth completes its mobilization. They want to crush morale with a decisive opening blow." Aria studied the map with cold precision. The Dominion always fought with overwhelming force. Numbers, resources, ships that dwarfed even Earth's most advanced cruisers. But they underestimated one thing: the fury of the species they had just betrayed. She placed her hand on the table. "We're not going to wait for them to strike Sol." Kale frowned. "General, are you proposing preemptive action? Our fleets are scattered. We don't need all of them," Aria said. "We just need one strike group. A fast one. And something they don't expect." Kale narrowed his eyes. "You want to break the Orion Gate?" A murmur rippled through the room. Aria didn't deny it. The gate was the Dominion's primary transit corridor. Destroy it, and their 14 fleets would be stranded across the sector, forced into long, inefficient routes. A strategic decapitation. A declaration that Earth would no longer play by Dominion rules. "It will cripple their mobility," Aria said. "Buy us weeks, maybe months. It will also guarantee war on a scale we have never seen," Kale warned. "Once the gate is destroyed, there is no going back. No diplomacy. No retreat." Aria met his gaze without flinching. The moment the king fired that shot, there was no going back. Silence settled again, heavy, inevitable. Finally, Kale nodded. "Then we move. Earth Fleet will prepare a strike group." Aria straightened despite the ache in her bones. "I'm leading it." Kale stiffened. "General, you were nearly killed. And because of that," she said, "the Dominion thinks I'm dead. Let's use the only advantage they gave us." He exhaled, defeated but understanding. "Very well." As she walked out, officers parted as she passed. Some touched their hearts. Others saluted. A few simply stared, with awe, with fear, with renewed resolve. To them, she was no longer just a general. She was a symbol the Dominion had failed to destroy. She stepped into the lift, feeling the weight of every life depending on her next decision. The doors closed with a soft hiss. Aria whispered to herself, voice low, steady, unbreakable. 1,700 years of peace ended by a coward's shot. Now he finished what he started. And for the first time since waking, she allowed herself a thin, fierce smile. The Dominion thought they had buried her. They had merely planted something far more dangerous. When the gate fell, the galaxy trembled. The stealth cruiser Vanguard's Mercy emerged from slipspace like a whisper, its hull shimmering against the vast glow of the Orion Gate. The colossal ring, 50 kilometers in diameter, studded with Dominion fortresses and emitters, hung like a metal god in the darkness, humming with the power to move entire armadas across light years in seconds. a marvel of engineering, a symbol of dominion superiority. And today, the target of a single, furious world. Inside the command deck, General Aria Sol stood at the viewport, one hand still pressed lightly against her half-healed chest wound. The pain was manageable. The stakes were not. Admiral Kale reports all strike ships in position, said Lieutenant Mara, her voice taut with adrenaline. They're awaiting your go signal. Arya nodded, eyes locked on the ring. Dominion patrol craft drifted lazily around it, unaware. Their sensors were calibrated to detect military fleets, not a tiny human strike group threading shadows in the dark. That ignorance would cost them everything. Open strike channel, Arya ordered. A chorus of acknowledgments buzzed through her earpiece as dozens of captains linked into a unified line. She spoke calmly. 1,700 years of peace ended because the Dominion thought humans were predictable, tame, submissive. Her voice dropped, cold, razor-sharp. Today, we show them who we really are. Target, Orion Gate. Operation status, irreversible. Across the strike group, weapons powered up. No more diplomacy. No more treaties. No more pretending humanity could be ruled. Execute. The first blow. The blackness of space ignited. Human plasma lances, smaller, more agile than Dominion fire, stabbed into the ring's outer shields. Shockwaves flared across the superstructure in bursts of blue and white. Dominion outposts scrambled, alarms erupting across their channels. Arya watched their frantic chatter. Unidentified hostiles. Impossible, no fleet detected. Gate is under attack. Repeat, gate is... She cut the feed. Second volley. The strike group moved like a pack of wolves, swift, precise, coordinated. Several Dominion escorts exploded before their captains even realized a battle had begun. The ring's shields flickered unevenly, destabilized by the unexpected angles of impact. But the Dominion was nothing if not disciplined. It took them only seconds to respond. A swarm of interceptor drones burst from the gate's internal bays, deploying in a lethal web. Drones incoming, Mara shouted. Aria's posture didn't waver. Deploy wave countermeasures. Set interceptor pattern Sigma 5. The Mercy released a cloud of micro-shields, thin, fast, light, designed to scatter drone targeting systems. The human ships veered through them like ghosts, splitting and reforming with surgical precision. A Dominion commander's voice blared across the intercepted channel. Defend the ring at all costs. The king demands. Aria's eyes narrowed. The king. The man who tried to kill her to prove a point. He would watch his empire crumble because he underestimated what one human life meant to 8 billion. Reaching the heart. The strike group's bombardment intensified. Shields dimmed. Structural beams glowed red from overheating. Power nodes ruptured one by one, rippling across the massive ring like bursting stars. Still, it wasn't enough. The gate was ancient, reinforced, built to withstand centuries of war. General, Kale's voice crackled through the comlink. We won't break it with conventional fire. Even at full power, the gate's core will stabilize. Arya already knew that, which is why she brought something else. Prepare the arc shard, she ordered. Mara stiffened. But, General, that weapon's untested. If it destabilizes, it's the only thing that can shatter a superstructure this size. The arc shard, a relic of old Earth science. Half forbidden experiment, half accidental discovery. A contained singularity that could be directed, but not truly controlled. A weapon built not for war, but for the nightmare scenario humanity prayed would never come. Charge the shard, Arya said. Warning lights strobed red across the cruiser. Deep within the hull, the sealed core began to hum, drawing power from every capacitor, every generator. The entire ship vibrated with it. Kale's voice returned. Strike group is clearing radius. You'll only get one shot. One is enough, Arya replied. She stepped toward the viewport, bracing one hand against the console as the floor shook under her boots. Her vision swam for a moment, pain lancing through her chest, but she steadied herself. She had died once already. Death didn't frighten her anymore. Arc shard at 82%, Mara called out. 90, 95. General, we're at full charge. Arya took a breath. Fire. The fall of the Orion Gate. A beam of pure gravitational distortion erupted from the Mercy's bow. A twisting spear of bent reality. Space writhed at its edges. Stars seemed to shiver. The beam struck the heart of the Orion Gate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything did. The ring convulsed. Metal groaned louder than thunder. A shockwave of warped gravity rippled out, ripping drones apart, crushing nearby cruisers into collapsing spheres of debris. The ring's inner core collapsed inward, then exploded outward in a blinding, white-gold detonation. The Orion Gate, symbol of Dominion supremacy, split apart like a dying sun. A roar of victory erupted across the strike group comms. Arya didn't celebrate. She stared into the brilliant wreckage, knowing the war had only begun. With the gate destroyed, 14 Dominion fleets were stranded. Hundreds of worlds suddenly cut off. The Dominion's logistics shattered. Earth had bought itself time, but not safety. The final declaration. A new transmission appeared, Dominion crest blazing crimson. The king himself, seething with rage. You dare strike the gate? You dare defy the Dominion? You traitorous, primitive. Arya cut him off. This is General Aria Sol of Earth, she said, voice steady, unyielding. You tried to kill me to break humanity's spirit. Instead, you forged it. You ended the peace with one coward shot. Now we answer. She leaned closer to the monitor, eyes burning. War is here, and Earth is coming for you. She terminated the connection. Behind her, the stellar remains of the Orion Gate burned like a funeral pyre. A pyre for 1,700 years of peace. A pyre for the Dominion's illusion of dominance. A pyre announcing that humanity had risen to fight a war it never wanted, but would finish. Arya inhaled slowly. Set course for Earth, she ordered. We prepare for the counter-offensive. The crew moved instantly. The war had begun, and she intended to win it.